My sister hired private investigators to expose me and prove I was lying about my company. She planned to humiliate me at Grandma's party until the agents walked in with handcuffs. The Colorado autumn air hit me like a physical blow, a ghost of the past catching its breath. 5 years ago, I walked out of their lives with nothing but a whispered promise: watch me. Tonight, that promise was about to become a devastating reality. I stepped out of my black Tesla, the crisp air a stark contrast to the boiling rage and icy determination in my chest. 5 years. 5 years since I'd been dismissed, discarded, and told I wasn't enough. Now, the Prairie Hills Country Lodge loomed ahead, its marble entrance gleaming under the setting sun, filled with 120 unsuspecting guests celebrating Grandma Miriam's 78th birthday. They had no idea the storm about to break. My phone buzzed, vibrating against my palm. Nolan Pierce, my COO, never texted unless it was urgent. AG's office confirmed Miriam's audit backs up their case. Warrant is active. My fingers tightened around the device. Attorney General. Warrant. Tonight. The words should have terrified me, but instead, something cold and sharp settled deep in my gut. This wasn't just justice. This was vindication. I adjusted the lapels of my $3,000 Armani blazer. It felt like armor, a shield against the ghosts of the past. This same family, who wrote me off as a failure, had no clue their disappointment now ran a $180 million cybersecurity empire. Watch me, I whispered to the marble steps, but even as I said it, a tremor ran through my hands. The memory crashed over me, always unbidden. That dinner, 5 years ago. The Grant family dining room, all pretentious mahogany and crystal that cost more than most people's cars. I was 26, still desperate, still believing I could earn their approval if I just tried harder. Playing with code isn't a career, Alexis. My father's voice, Douglas Grant, the real estate mogul, carried that familiar blend of dismissal and disappointment. He couldn't fathom technology mattered. When are you going to get serious about your future? My mother, Evelyn, chimed in, setting her wine glass down with a delicate clink. Why can't you be more like your sister? Evelyn Grant's specialty. The comparison designed to cut the deepest. Marilyn, the golden child extraordinaire, leaned back, that smile I'd learned to fear playing on her lips. Actually, I might have something for Alexis. My nonprofit could use an assistant. Part-time, of course. An assistant. Part-time. After I'd spent 3 years building security software that companies were actually buying. See? Mom's face lit up as if Marilyn had just offered to cure cancer. Marilyn always looks out for family. The weight of 26 years crashed down on me in that moment. 26 years of being the family scapegoat, the one who couldn't measure up. The disappointment. I'd worked double shifts at 16 to pay for college while Marilyn's education was fully funded. I'd endured years of, why can't you get straight A's like your sister? I'd built something from nothing, and they called it playing. But it was what Mom said next that broke something inside me permanently. I just want to be proud of you, honey. Is that too much to ask? I am proud of you. 5 words I'd chased my entire life. 5 words she'd never said. Not even when I graduated summa cum laude, or when my first client paid me $50,000 for a security audit. Her approval had been my fatal flaw. I was the daughter who stayed up until 3 a.m. perfecting projects for parents who noticed nothing but flaws. I was the teenager who worked herself to exhaustion trying to prove I deserved the same investment they gave Marilyn without question. I was the young woman who kept believing that if I just achieved enough, they would finally see me. But sitting at that table, watching Marilyn's smug satisfaction and my parents' relieved expressions, I understood the truth that would change everything. The game was rigged. It had always been rigged. They needed me to fail so Marilyn could succeed. They needed me to stay small so they could feel big. They needed me to remain desperate for approval so they could dole it out as a reward for compliance. I stood up. Dad's face went slack. Marilyn's smile faltered. Watch me, I said, 2 words that meant everything and nothing. Watch me build something real? Prove my worth? Succeed without you? All of it. None of it. I didn't know yet. I just walked out their front door into the October night. I blocked their phone numbers. I returned Christmas cards unopened. I built Vanguard Shield from a $1,000 laptop in my studio apartment, coding 18-hour days, fueled by rage and determination. For 5 years, I chose myself over their approval. It was the most terrifying and liberating decision I'd ever made. Now, standing outside Prairie Hills Country Lodge, that terrified 26-year-old still lives somewhere in my chest, whispering that I don't belong here. That I'll never be good enough. That walking through those doors will prove they were right about me all along. But she's wrong. I'm not the broken girl who walked out 5 years ago. I'm A.L. Grant, CEO of Vanguard Shield. Forbes featured me on their 35 under 35 list, though my family never knew because they never looked. I protect critical infrastructure for 3 states. I employ 47 people who depend on my decisions. I'm not playing with code anymore. I'm winning. The lodge's entrance doors swung open as a couple in their 70s emerged, the woman clutching pearls that probably cost more than my Tesla. They didn't recognize me. Why would they? The last time Willow Creek Society saw me, I was the Grant family failure. Tonight, that changes. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Nolan. You sure about this? I can handle everything from here. I almost smiled. Nolan Pierce. The first person who saw my worth before I proved it. My CO. My friend. The brother I chose instead of the family I inherited. He'd offered to spare me this confrontation, to let me avoid the emotional battlefield waiting inside. But running would prove they were right. And I'm done running. I typed back, I've got this. Because I do. Whatever happens tonight, whatever family drama unfolds, whatever pain gets dredged up, I know who I am now. I know what I've built. I know my worth isn't determined by people who couldn't recognize talent if it debugged their entire network. The marble steps felt solid under my heels. The doorman nodded respectfully. Through the glass, I saw relatives I hadn't spoken to in 5 years, all dressed in their finest, all completely unaware that their world was about to shift. Grandma Miriam was in there somewhere, the only family member who ever saw me clearly. She was the reason I came tonight, the reason I was walking back into this emotional minefield. She was also the reason I knew I'd survive it. I reached for the handle, and for just a moment, I let myself feel everything. The fear, the anger, the hope, the grief. 5 years of silence ending in one evening, the family that broke me about to discover who I became in the breaking. The warning arrived 3 days before Grandma Miriam's party, buried in my morning inbox like a digital time bomb. Marilyn is planning something big for Grandma's party. She says she's going to expose the truth about you. Cousin Tessa's text stopped my coffee cup halfway to my lips. I was sitting in my Denver penthouse, 47 floors above the city that rebuilt my life, and suddenly I was 26. Again. Heart racing. Palms sweating. That familiar knot of dread twisting in my stomach. Expose what truth? I hadn't spoken to any of them in 5 years. I'd been ghost protocol since I walked out of their dining room. What could Marilyn possibly know about my life now? I forwarded the message to Nolan Pierce without a word. My COO understood family warfare better than most people understood their own careers. He'd built his fortune escaping an equally toxic clan in Boston. His response came back in minutes. On it. Calling contacts now. This is why I pay Nolan the big money. Well, one of the reasons. The other is that he's the only person I trust completely, which says everything about my relationship with blood relatives and nothing about his qualifications. 2 hours later, he stood in my office with the expression I'd learned to fear. It was the same look he wore when he discovered our biggest competitor was stealing our code. Professional concern wrapped in barely contained fury. She hired investigators, he said, without preamble. Ridgewell and Hartman out of Denver. High-end firm, not cheap. My chest tightened. What kind of investigators? The thorough kind. Colton Hartman specifically, former FBI, 20 years experience, specializes in financial forensics and background verification. Nolan dropped a manila folder on my desk. The good news is he's ethical, won't fabricate evidence or break laws to get dirt. And the bad news? He's very, very good at finding what's actually there. I stared at the folder without opening it. Inside were probably photos, financial records, employee interviews. The architecture of my carefully constructed new life laid bare for Marilyn's entertainment. How much does she know? Nolan's silence stretched too long. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of bad news delivered gently. She knows about A.L. Grant. The world tilted sideways. A.L. Grant. My professional identity. My gender-neutral shield in the tech world. My protection against anyone connecting Vanguard Shield's success to the Grant family failure. 5 years of careful separation gone. She knows you're on the Forbes list. She knows about the $180 million valuation. She knows your CEO. His voice got quieter. Alexis. She knows everything. I sank into my chair, the leather suddenly feeling like quicksand. This was worse than I imagined. Marilyn didn't just discover I existed. She discovered I succeeded. Spectacularly. While she was playing nonprofit director in Willow Creek, I was building an empire an hour away. There's more. Of course there was. Nolan pulled out his phone, scrolled to something that made his jaw clench. Hartman's investigation went both ways. When he traced payment sources for his fees, he found something interesting in Marilyn's finances. My blood turned to ice water. What kind of something? $420,000 embezzled from her nonprofit over 3 years, plus $25,000 stolen from your family trust. He looked up from the phone. Hartman's legally obligated to report felony financial crimes to the Colorado Attorney General's office. The irony hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. Marilyn hired an investigator to destroy me and accidentally destroyed herself instead. The golden child who spent years criticizing everyone else's ethics was a criminal. The sister who got everything handed to her had been stealing from charitable donations and family money. When does he file the report? He's filing it. This morning. Nolan's expression shifted from concern to something harder. The Attorney General's office confirmed they're opening an investigation. Could result in federal embezzlement charges. I should have felt vindicated. I should have felt justice served on a silver platter. Instead, I felt sick. Because I knew what this meant. The Grant family's perfect world was about to implode. Douglas and Evelyn Grant, pillars of Willow Creek society, were going to discover their golden child was facing 3 to 5 years in federal prison. Their charitable foundation queen was a thief. Their social status was about to crater. And they'd blame me. Not because I reported anything. I didn't know about the embezzlement until 30 seconds ago. But because I'm the family scapegoat, the permanent problem, the daughter whose existence seems to invite catastrophe. This is enough for the AG to open a criminal investigation. They're going to move fast. Including at Grandma's party. I pictured the scene. Prairie Hills Country Lodge. 120 guests dressed in their finest. Celebrating Miriam's 78th birthday. Marilyn at the microphone, preparing to humiliate me publicly when federal agents walk through those marble doors. The poetic justice would be beautiful if it weren't so devastating. My phone rang. Unknown Colorado number, but I recognized the area code. Willow Creek. Should I answer it? Nolan shook his head. Nothing good comes from unknown numbers during family crises. The call went to voicemail. Then another unknown number called. Then another. Words spreading, I whispered. Probably Marilyn, calling relatives to warn them about your deception. She doesn't know about the Attorney General yet. Nolan's voice carried grim amusement. She's still planning her ambush, not knowing she's already been ambushed. My laptop chimed with an email notification. Mom's address. The first direct contact in 5 years. Subject, family obligations. Alexis. Your father and I expect you at your grandmother's party. Whatever games you're playing with your sister need to stop immediately. Family comes first, not your hurt feelings. It's time to grow up and take responsibility for your choices. We'll discuss your behavior privately after the celebration. Mother. I read it twice, then closed the laptop. They still don't get it, I said to nobody in particular. They think this is about feelings and sibling rivalry. They think I'm the problem. Are you going? The question hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. Was I going to walk into that emotional battlefield? Was I going to face down parents who still saw me as the family disappointment? Was I going to watch Marilyn get arrested at our grandmother's birthday party? Yes. Nolan raised an eyebrow. You sure? I can handle everything from here. You don't need to subject yourself to that circus. But he was wrong. I did need to be there. Not for revenge. Not for vindication. Not even for justice. I needed to be there because running away would prove everything they ever said about me. That I'm weak. That I can't handle family responsibility. That I'm the problem. 5 years ago, I walked out of their house as a failure. If I was going back, it was as a success. Not for their approval anymore, but for my own peace. I'm not hiding from the truth anymore, I told Nolan. Even if the truth was going to destroy everything they thought they knew about their perfect family. Even if justice came with handcuffs and federal charges. Even if going home meant watching everything burn. My phone didn't stop buzzing. Since we discovered the ambush yesterday, notifications piled up like digital debris from a family I thought I'd left behind. Social media notifications from relatives I barely remembered. WhatsApp messages from the Grant family group chat that somehow, impossibly, still included my number. I scrolled through them while my coffee went cold in Vanguard Shield's executive conference room. Uncle Roberts. Wife posting cryptic Facebook updates. Some people think success gives them the right to abandon family. Cousin Sarah, sharing articles about family values with pointed comments about loyalty. The digital breadcrumbs of Marilyn's campaign, preparing everyone for whatever bomb she planned to drop at Grandma's party. Tessa's warning text from yesterday felt prophetic now. Marilyn is calling everyone. She says she's going to expose the truth about you at the party. The truth, as if my sister had any concept of what that meant. Nolan walked into the conference room carrying a stack of government contracts worth $53 million. Protection systems for voting infrastructure in 3 states. Real work. Work that mattered. Work that kept democracy functioning while my family gossiped in Willow Creek. The family campaign is escalating, I told him, sliding my phone across the mahogany table. He read the messages, his jaw tightening. Want me to have our legal team send a cease and desist? For what? Telling relatives that their successful sister might be hiding something. I leaned back in my chair. She's too smart for anything actionable. Just planting seeds. But the doubt crept in anyway. That old, familiar voice that whispers maybe they're right about me. Maybe building a $180 million company doesn't make me worthy of respect. Maybe I really am just playing with code. My laptop chimed with an email from Mom. The subject line read, Family Responsibility. I stared at the notification for 30 seconds before deleting it unread. Some conversations aren't worth having. The Attorney General's office confirmed they received Colton's report, Nolan said, settling into the chair across from me. But no timeline on when they'll act. When, not if. The distinction mattered. Marilyn's financial crimes would catch up with her eventually, but Grandma's party was in 2 days. 2 days for whatever chaos my sister had planned. My phone rang. Unknown Colorado number. Hello. Alexis. Dad's voice. Gravely, with false authority. We need to talk. I hadn't heard Douglas Grant's voice in 5 years. It sounded smaller than I remembered. Less commanding. Age, maybe. Or the realization that his intimidation tactics don't work on someone who built her own empire. About what? About what? Your grandmother's party. Your mother thinks. He paused. And I heard Mom's voice in the background, sharp and insistent. We think it would be best if you didn't attend. The familiar punch of rejection hit my chest. Even now, even after everything I'd accomplished, they wanted me gone. The inconvenient daughter who might disrupt their perfect family narrative. Because Marilyn says you've been spreading vicious rumors that her nonprofit has financial problems. We don't need that kind of drama at Miriam's celebration. Spreading lies. The projection was stunning. I'd spoken to exactly 0 family members about Marilyn's criminal behavior. 0 social media posts. 0 gossip campaigns. I'd been silent for 5 years while they constructed whatever fantasy version of events helps them sleep at night. I haven't said anything to anyone about Marilyn. I see. Believe what you want, Dad. I'll see you at the party. I hung up before he could respond. Nolan watched me carefully. You okay? They just uninvited me from my own grandmother's birthday party because Marilyn convinced them I'm some kind of criminal mastermind. I laughed, but it came out hollow. The system works sometimes, Nolan said quietly. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like standing in quicksand while my family threw stones. My phone rang again. This time the number made my heart skip. Grandma? Hello, sweetheart. Miriam's voice, crystal clear despite her 78 years. I heard Douglas called you. He uninvited me to your party. Douglas doesn't get to uninvite people to my party. Neither does Marilyn, though she's been suggesting I should reconsider who attends. Grandma's tone sharpened. As if I need a criminal's advice about guest lists. Criminal. The word hit different coming from Miriam. Not speculation or accusation. Fact. You know about the investigation. Sweetheart, I commissioned it. The world stopped. What? 2 months ago, I ordered my own audit of Marilyn's nonprofit. Something about her finances never added up. New Mercedes on a nonprofit salary? European vacations funded by donor appreciation events? I'm old, not stupid. My grandmother. Sharp-minded, suspicious, protective of family resources while everyone else got distracted by Marilyn's golden child performance. The auditor found everything, Miriam continued. The embezzlement, the phantom expenses, the money stolen from our family trust. When that private investigator approached me last week with similar findings, I shared my audit with him. Made his job much easier. The pieces clicked into place. Colton Hartman had 2 sources of evidence, the paper trail he uncovered and Grandma's independent investigation. No wonder the Attorney General's office moved so quickly. Why didn't you tell anyone? Because I wanted to see how far she'd go. How much she'd steal. How many people she'd hurt before someone stopped her. Miriam's voice carried 5 decades of family wisdom. Turns out, she was planning to hurt you publicly while stealing from the family privately. That's when I knew she'd gone too far. I sank back in my conference chair, overwhelmed. I'm just worried, if she gets arrested at the party, the shock. For you? That the shock might kill me. Grandma laughed. Alexis, I'm 78, not fragile. I've survived the Great Depression, 3 recessions, and your grandfather's midlife crisis. I think I can handle learning that my granddaughter protected herself from a predator. Predator. Another word that hit like truth. Besides, Miriam added, Marilyn doesn't know I have copies of everything. Bank records, forged signatures, diverted donations. She thinks she's holding the only cards. But I've been playing this game longer than she's been alive. For the first time in days, I smiled. Really smiled. I'll see you at the party, Grandma. I'm counting on it. Someone needs to witness justice being served. After we hung up, I sat in the conference room silence, processing everything. Marilyn played her final card last night, threatening Grandma to keep me quiet. But she played it against someone who was already 3 moves ahead. The golden child thinks she's protecting herself by threatening the family matriarch. She doesn't know the matriarch is the one who started the investigation in the first place. Nolan was still reading government contracts, but I could tell he was listening. Feel better. Marilyn doesn't know she's already lost. She will soon. I checked the time. 24 hours until the party. 24 hours until a room full of relatives discovers their golden child is a criminal, while their scapegoat is a CEO. 24 hours until 5 years of silence ends in one spectacular evening. My phone buzzed with another family group chat notification. This time it was Marilyn herself. Looking forward to seeing everyone tomorrow night. It's time some truths came to light. I almost laughed. She had no idea how right she was. The sun set over Denver's skyline, casting long shadows across Vanguard Shield's headquarters. 47 employees were heading home to families who respected their contributions. Government contracts worth $53 million sat on my conference table, protecting democracy itself. This is what I built while my family whispered about my failures. This is what I accomplished while they elevated a criminal. Tomorrow night, they'll finally understand the difference. But tonight, I was going to prepare for the most important party of my life. Not because I needed their approval anymore, but because some battles win themselves when you stop fighting them. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply show up and watch the truth unfold. The Prairie Hills Country Lodge ballroom doors swung open with the kind of dramatic timing that only happens in movies or family disasters. I stepped inside, and 120 conversations halted mid-sentence. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Wine glasses paused at lips. The silence spread through the room like spilled ink. They expected broken. They were getting bulletproof. My Armani blazer fit like armor tonight, charcoal gray instead of the black they probably imagined I'd wear to a funeral of my own reputation. 5 years of therapy and $180 million in net worth had given me something they couldn't comprehend: unshakable confidence. Across the room, Marilyn's face went chalk white. She was standing near the head table, microphone in her manicured hand, clearly caught mid-preparation for whatever humiliation she'd planned. Her mouth opened slightly, then snapped shut. This wasn't the broken woman she expected to destroy tonight. But it was Grandma Miriam's smile that steadied my breathing. She sat at the head table like the queen she'd always been, her sharp gray eyes twinkling with secrets. She, like me, was one of only 2 people in this room who knew what was really about to unfold. I didn't rush toward any particular group. I didn't announce my presence or offer explanations. I simply walked through the space like I belonged here, because I do. Success had taught me that confidence isn't about proving yourself. It's about knowing your own worth and letting others catch up. Cousin Tessa approached first, her face flushed with what looked like embarrassment. Alexis, wow. You look. She gestured vaguely at my outfit, my posture, the aura of quiet authority I'd apparently developed. Different, I finished for her. 5 years will do that. Uncle Robert stared from his corner table, probably trying to reconcile the dismissed family failure with the woman standing before him in $3,000 clothing. I caught his eye and nodded politely. He nearly choked on his wine. Marilyn finally found her voice. She tapped the microphone twice, the feedback screech cutting through the murmured conversations that had started up again. Ladies and gentlemen, family and friends. Her voice carried that practiced public speaking tone she'd perfected through her nonprofit work. Tonight, we're not just celebrating Grandma Miriam's 78th birthday. We're also welcoming someone home. The emphasis on someone dripped with false warmth. I leaned against the back wall, arms crossed, letting her perform. Today, we welcome Alexis home, as a CEO. The skepticism in her voice could cut glass. Several relatives shifted uncomfortably. Dad's face hardened from his table near the front. Mom's hand fluttered to her pearl necklace, like she was checking that it was still there. Marilyn's pivot was smoother than I expected. She abandoned whatever evidence-based attack she'd planned and went straight for emotional manipulation. But what is success worth when it's built on ingratitude? On abandoning the family who raised you, who loved you, who only wanted the best for you? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Heads nodded. The Grant family had always been good at collective judgment. Success without family loyalty is just sophisticated selfishness. Her voice grew stronger as she sensed the room's support. Some people think money makes them better than the people who sacrificed for them. I didn't flinch. 5 years ago, these words would have crushed me. The 26-year-old Alexis would have crumbled under this public shaming, would have scrambled to defend herself with explanations no one wanted to hear. But that woman died the night I walked out of their dining room. Cousin Tessa leaned over to me, her voice barely a whisper. Is it true what she's saying? That you never called? Never sent a card? You'll understand everything soon, I replied quietly. My composed response seemed to unsettle her more than any defensive argument would have. She expected guilt, shame, desperate justification. Instead, she got the calm authority of someone who built a company protecting critical infrastructure for 3 states while they gossiped in Willow Creek. Douglas joined Marilyn's performance from his table. Some people think success excuses abandonment. His voice carried across the room easily. But character isn't measured by bank accounts. The irony would be funny if it weren't so tragic. Marilyn's speech grew more vicious as she sensed something shifting in the room's energy. Her prepared talking points were failing to land the way she expected. When family loyalty becomes inconvenient, when gratitude becomes a burden, What kind of person chooses pride over love? But I noticed Uncle Robert frowning now, Aunt Susan whispering to her husband. The tide wasn't turning the way Marilyn planned. The internal mantra from therapy ran through my head. Their opinion of me is none of my business. I remembered the last therapy session before I decided to come tonight. Dr. Martinez asking the question that changed everything. What would the 26-year-old Alexis do right now? The answer had been immediate and devastating. She would have stood up, red-faced and desperate, trying to defend herself with words they'd never believe. She would have listed her accomplishments like a resume, begged them to see her worth, proven she deserved their respect through achievements they couldn't understand. The present-day me understood that proof comes through actions, not arguments. Truth doesn't need a defense attorney. So I stood quietly near the back wall, letting Marilyn hang herself with her own rope. Every vicious word revealed more about her character than mine. Every desperate attack showed their own insecurities and prejudices. The room's energy shifted subtly as guests noticed the contrast. Marilyn's increasingly frantic accusations versus my calm, collected presence. I wasn't the broken failure they expected. I wasn't defending myself or begging for acceptance. I was just here, confident, unshakable. Uncle Robert muttered to his wife, just loud enough for nearby tables to hear. She doesn't look like a failure to me. Marilyn's speech reached its crescendo. Success built on abandoning family isn't success at all. It's just sophisticated betrayal. The ballroom doors opened. 7:52 p.m. 2 detectives and an investigator from the Colorado Attorney General's office entered with the kind of purposeful stride that cut through party atmosphere like a knife through silk. Their badges caught the chandelier light as they scanned the room. Conversations died again. But this time, the silence felt different. Dangerous. The lead detective's voice carried just enough to reach the microphone. Miss Marilyn Grant. Every head in the room turned toward the head table. Marilyn's face went from flushed with righteous indignation to corpse pale in the span of a heartbeat. You are under arrest for embezzlement and fraud. The words hit the ballroom like a physical blow. Someone dropped a wine glass. The crystal shatter echoed off marble floors. I watched from my position against the wall as handcuffs clicked around the golden child's wrists. The sound cut through the collective gasp of 120 stunned guests. Marilyn's public humiliation walk began. Past the head table where Grandma Miriam sat with perfect composure. Past relatives whose mouths hung open in shock. Past parents whose world was crumbling in real time. And past me. Our eyes met for one brief moment as the detectives escorted her toward the exit. I saw fear, rage, and something else I didn't recognize. Defeat, maybe. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I simply witnessed justice finally being served. The ballroom erupted into chaos as the doors closed behind them. Douglas and Evelyn rushed toward me, voices rising in desperate confusion. What did you do? How could you do this to your own sister? Grandma Miriam's clear voice cut through their panic. Alexis did nothing. The Attorney General's office did their job. The truth is finally being seen. The family's conspiracy of willful blindness finally cracked. Relatives whispered frantically. Wait, if Alexis didn't report this, then who did? Nolan Pierce entered quietly through the side door, his presence confirming what some guests were beginning to suspect. I wasn't the family failure anymore. I was the only one left standing. The ballroom buzzed with whispered conversations that sliced through the air like static electricity. I stood near the dessert table, watching family members cluster in tight groups, their voices low but their gestures animated. The birthday cake sat untouched, its 78 candles now cold wax puddles on buttercream. 20 minutes had passed since Marilyn left in handcuffs. 20 minutes since my family's world cracked wide open. I heard it was embezzlement, Aunt Patricia whispered to Uncle Robert, her voice carrying despite her attempt at discretion. For $100,000. From her own charity, Robert responded, shaking his head. Jesus Christ, Pat, we donated to that thing. Cousin Tessa approached me, her face pale. Alexis, I'm so sorry. I had no idea about any of this when I warned you about Marilyn's plan. I touched her arm gently. Neither did I. Not the details, anyway. But that wasn't entirely true. I knew something was wrong. The pieces were already falling into place before tonight, thanks to Colton Hartman's thorough investigation. The private investigator Marilyn hired to destroy me had uncovered far more than my business success. He'd found her crimes. Detective Williams approached our group, his notepad out. Miss Grant, I need to ask you a few questions about your sister's financial activities. I've had no contact with Marilyn for 5 years, I said clearly. I knew nothing about her business operations. But you did hire the investigator who discovered the embezzlement? No, I didn't. My sister hired Ridgewell and Hartman to investigate me. Mr. Hartman discovered her crimes while conducting that investigation. Williams nodded, making a note. Professional obligations required him to report the crimes to our office. Across the room, Dad stood with his back against the wall, his face gray as concrete. Mom sat in a chair someone brought her, clutching a tissue that had disintegrated from overuse. They looked like survivors of a natural disaster, which I suppose they were. A natural disaster named Consequences. Alexis. Grandma Miriam's voice drew my attention. She was sitting at the head table, still wearing her birthday tiara, looking more alert and sharp than anyone else in the room. Would you help me with something? I crossed to her table, aware that conversations paused as I passed. 5 years ago, these people watched me leave as the family failure. Tonight, they were seeing me as something else entirely. Sit with me, dear. Miriam patted the chair beside her. I think it's time I shared something with everyone. She stood slowly, reaching for the microphone Marilyn abandoned. Her voice carried clearly through the ballroom's sound system. Friends, family, I know tonight has been shocking for many of you. But I need to tell you something important. She paused, her eyes finding Dad across the room. 2 months ago, I commissioned my own audit of Marilyn's nonprofit organization. The room went completely silent. Even the catering staff stopped moving. I've been suspicious for some time. Marilyn lived well above what a nonprofit director should earn. Her European vacation last spring, funded she claimed by a bonus, raised questions. So I hired forensic accountants to examine her books. Dad's face turned from gray to white. Mother, what are you saying? I'm saying I discovered what Mr. Hartman discovered. Forged signatures on donation receipts. Phantom expenses for events that never happened. Money diverted from programs meant to help at-risk children. Her voice strengthened with each word. And $25,000 stolen from our family trust. Money that was designated for my medical care. The gasp that ran through the room sounded like wind through dry leaves. Grandma Miriam found bank records, I added quietly, my voice carrying in the stunned silence. The family trust money funded Marilyn's vacation to Europe. Uncle Robert's face flushed red. You mean she stole from her own grandmother? While criticizing others for their greed, Miriam confirmed, while positioning herself as the moral center of our family. I watched the information sink in. These people had spent decades seeing Marilyn as the golden child, the responsible one, the daughter who stayed close and cared for family. Learning that she systematically stole from the very people who adored her created a cognitive dissonance that showed on every face. Mom finally spoke, her voice hoarse. How much? $420,000 from the charity, Detective Williams answered from across the room. $25,000 from the family trust. Total restitution of $445,000. The number hung in the air like a guillotine. We don't have that kind of money, Dad said quietly. Not liquid. We'd have to sell the house. I felt a complex emotion I couldn't quite name. Not satisfaction, exactly. Not vindication. Something sadder and more final. The family that valued appearances above all else was about to lose everything that maintained those appearances. Their $1.2 million house. Their country club membership. Their position in Willow Creek society. All of it built on a foundation that just collapsed. Douglas. We need to talk. Detective Williams approached my parents. The district attorney wants to discuss cooperation in your daughter's case. As they walked away, heads bowed, I noticed something I hadn't felt in 5 years. The absence of their disapproval didn't hurt anymore. Their opinion of me, good or bad, simply didn't matter. Success didn't give me that freedom. Money didn't buy it. Justice did. Alexis, cousin Tessa approached hesitantly. I owe you an apology. We all do. 5 years ago, when you left, we thought you were being dramatic. Ungrateful. But seeing this tonight, understanding what Marilyn was really doing. You don't need to apologize, I said, meaning it. You believed what made sense based on the information you had. But we should have looked deeper. Should have questioned why the successful daughter needed to tear down the struggling one. That hit closer to truth than she probably realized. Families like ours require scapegoats to function. Someone has to be the problem so everyone else can feel like the solution. Grandma Miriam reclaimed the microphone. Before this evening ends, I want to say something about my granddaughter Alexis. My stomach tightened. Public attention still felt dangerous, even when it was positive. 5 years ago, she walked away from this family. Many of you judged that decision. But sometimes, walking away is the most courageous choice available. Her eyes found mine across the room. She built something remarkable in that time. A business that protects people's digital security. Real work that makes the world safer. She paused and I saw tears in her eyes for the first time tonight. I'm proud of her. I should have said that years ago, publicly, when it mattered most. But I'm saying it now. The words I spent 31 years needing to hear. Not from Mom. From someone who actually saw me. 3 hours later, I helped Grandma Miriam blow out the candles on her birthday cake. The party had dwindled to family members, and the atmosphere felt like the aftermath of a storm. Damaged, but cleaner somehow. Through the ballroom windows, I watched police cars leave with the last of the evidence boxes. Marilyn would spend the next 3 years in federal prison. Dad and Mom would spend the next decade rebuilding their lives from scratch, and I'd continue building mine. As I walked Grandma Miriam to her ride, she squeezed my arm. 6 months from now, dear. I suspect you'll transform this whole mess into something positive. That's who you are. She was right. I was already planning to acquire Marilyn's defunct nonprofit for $1 and rebuild it as a legitimate organization. The Grant Digital Safety Initiative would actually help at-risk youth learn cybersecurity skills. Success building on the ruins of corruption. Justice served with a side of poetic irony. Perfect. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of what used to be Marilyn's corner office. 18 months after that night at Prairie Hills Country Lodge, I stood in the renovated headquarters of the former Marilyn Grant Foundation, now the Grant Digital Safety Initiative. The irony wasn't lost on me that I bought my sister's criminal enterprise for $1 and turned it into something that actually protects children online. 23 employees worked at standing desks where Marilyn once orchestrated her embezzlement schemes. Their conversations buzzed with genuine excitement about cybersecurity education programs, coding workshops for at-risk youth, and digital literacy initiatives. The name Grant finally meant something positive in Willow Creek. Something I built from the ashes of my sister's corruption. Marcus Rodriguez, our program director, approached with a tablet showing enrollment numbers. We got 15 kids signed up for Saturday's workshop. 2 are from the Riverside Group Home. The same group home where Marilyn claimed to send donations that never arrived. Now, we actually showed up. Perfect, I told him, watching a group of teenagers through the conference room glass as they debugged their first security program. Make sure Jenny has extra pizza ordered. My phone chimed with an email that stopped my breath. The sender line read, Miriam Grant, Sunset Manor Assisted Living. The subject, Sunday dinner invitation. Sunday dinner. 6 years. 6 years since I'd received a family dinner invitation. And this one came from Grandma Miriam in her new facility, not from Douglas and Evelyn in their modest apartment across town. The same cream cardstock. The same elegant script. But now the power dynamic had shifted completely. I read it twice before the anxiety I expected never came. Instead, I felt something lighter. Choice. The invitation didn't command my attendance or manipulate my guilt. It simply offered an option, like choosing between restaurants. I tapped reply and typed, looking forward to it, Grandma. Should I bring anything? No fear. No second guessing. No desperate need to prove my worth through perfect behavior. Just a granddaughter saying yes to her grandmother because she wants to. The memory surfaced unbidden. 3 months into therapy, Dr. Martinez's office with its calming gray walls and tissues strategically placed. "Tell me about approval," she'd said. "I spent 31 years trying to earn approval from people who were never going to give it." The words had tumbled out like confession. "It's like asking a broken vending machine for snacks. You keep feeding it quarters, hitting buttons, getting nothing back, but you convince yourself the next quarter will work." Dr. Martinez had nodded. "What happens when you stop feeding the machine? You find a working one." That breakthrough moment when I realized that seeking validation from toxic people wasn't persistence, it was insanity. The emotional freedom of building self-worth through achievement and service rather than family approval had taken months to feel real. But now it lived in my bones. "I don't need their pride anymore," I whispered to the empty office. "I have my own." Nolan's voice carried from the hallway as he discussed quarterly projections with our newest hire. Last month, I promoted him to company president. Our professional partnership becoming the kind of lifelong friendship I never knew was possible. Vanguard's shield had expanded to 4 states, protecting critical infrastructure from cyber threats, while these 23 employees helped children navigate digital dangers. The Forbes recognition led to keynote speaking opportunities about cybersecurity leadership. Last week, a fellow entrepreneur named David asked me to dinner after my presentation in Seattle. Not because he wanted something from my company, but because he admired the strength it took to rebuild my family's reputation while protecting my own boundaries. "You're dating someone," Nolan had observed Monday morning, grinning at my distracted smile. Maybe, I'd admitted, realizing this was what healthy attraction felt like. No desperate need to prove my worth, no anxiety about hidden agendas, just 2 adults who respect each other's work and want to learn more. My phone buzzed with a text from Tessa, saw the local news piece about the Digital Safety Initiative. "Mom says she's proud of what you're building." Aunt Sandra, who hadn't spoken to me in 5 years, now acknowledging that maybe I hadn't been the family failure after all. Even Uncle Robert's construction company contracts Vanguard's shield for their cybersecurity needs, their business relationship built on mutual respect rather than obligated family tolerance. 3 young women entered the lobby, notebooks clutched against their chests like shields. They were here for the monthly mentorship session I started for female entrepreneurs dealing with family sabotage. Last month, Sarah confessed that her parents called her bakery a hobby that'll bankrupt you. This month, she'd announce her 2nd location opening. "Success is the best boundary," I told them as we settled into the conference room. Not because money matters, but because achievement speaks louder than explanations. They nodded with the intensity of people who'd spent years defending dreams to people determined not to understand them. I saw my 26-year-old self in their faces, that desperate hunger for validation from sources that will never provide it. "Your family's opinion of your business isn't a reflection of your business," I continued. "It's a reflection of their capacity to recognize value. Some people can't see a forest because they're focused on criticizing individual leaves. What if they're right about the risks?" Sarah raised her hand. "Then you research, plan, and mitigate those risks. But you don't let their fear become your ceiling." After they left, inspired and armed with practical strategies, I drove to Sunset Manor for Grandma Miriam's 79th birthday dinner. 8 people gathered in the assisted living dining room, Douglas and Evelyn notably absent. Marilyn was in year 2 of federal prison, her parole hearing still 18 months away. Cousin Tessa passed the mashed potatoes while Uncle Robert shared construction stories that actually made Miriam laugh. The conversation flowed around normal family topics, her stories about the facility's book club, my latest government contract protecting voting systems in 3 states. No drama, no manipulation, no walking on eggshells, just normal connection between adults who respected each other. "Tell me about this young man in Seattle," Miriam said with a knowing smile. "His name is David. He builds renewable energy systems." "Does he make you laugh?" "He does." "Good. Laughter is important." No interrogation about his income, his family background, his 5-year plan, just a grandmother wanting her granddaughter to be happy. Driving home through Denver's evening skyline, Vanguard Shield's headquarters glowing among the towers. My phone showed 17 missed calls from a blocked number. Probably Evelyn, still trying to guilt me into family obligations that no longer existed. I deleted them without listening, the same way I delete spam. A text from Nolan lit up my screen. Government just approved the $50 million infrastructure contract. Congratulations, boss. $50 million protecting people's digital lives from real threats. My smile wasn't about the money, though financial security felt good. It was about the mission, the purpose, the knowledge that my pain transformed into protection for others. I pulled into my building's garage and retrieved my journal from the glove compartment. The leather cover was worn now, filled with 2 years of insights, breakthroughs, and honest observations. 5 years ago, I walked out of my family's house as a failure. Tonight, I drove home to my own life as a success. The difference wasn't the money. It was learning that some battles win themselves when you stop fighting them. Marilyn destroyed herself trying to destroy me. I won by becoming someone worth protecting. Family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shows up when your world is falling apart. And sometimes, showing up means walking away.